So sometimes you never even have to go outside your family, to find solutions that are causing your family to have hardships. With me in particular, I got my cousin, Kiara, and she's involved in mental health and substance abuse. So I figured today I'd do a whole lot of listening and let her and her friend, her worker, her boss, tell you guys about substance abuse and mental health. I'll give you guys the floor. You guys can tell them who you are, where you can be found, and what your credentials are.
Well, I'll start. I'm Diamond. I'm actually the nurse slash CEO of Phoenix Place. Phoenix Place is a mental health organization that deals primarily with substance abuse and the reentry process. So people that are getting out of prison, we give them home placement so that way they're not trying to figure out where they're going to stay afterwards, and we connect them with a therapist and a case manager to help them reintegrate back into the community. It's actually right here in the West End.
Where?
Right here on 20th and Chestnut. We got 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. We got the hub coming soon.
I bet you bump into a lot of characters coming out of it, don't you?
Oh,
because guys coming out of prison are funny dudes.
Yeah,
they're
hilarious. Like my very first reentry client, like he graduated now, he's my brother.
And your brother?
He's my brother.
He's doing well?
He's doing amazing. So he got his first job ever in the history of his life.
Yeah. So tell me, how long have you been involved in this whole thing?
We started about 2 years. It'll be 2 years in June.
Why do you think it's important?
I think it's important because I feel like that's a demographic that struggles the most. So when they come out, first off, they're because of being institutionalized, they automatically think different, behave different, and they come out feeling like the world is against them. And to me, it's partially true.
Yeah. It is. The world's not against them. The world just haven't stopped for them.
That's why I said partially.
Yeah, and there is a large swath of people that are rooting against them.
Mm-hmm.
They expect them to go back. They was expecting me to go back.
Definitely was. Yeah. But so I'm Kiara, by the way. I'm a licensed therapist, case manager, substance abuse counselor.
Yeah.
So I do it all. So I got into doing the substance abuse and everything. I have brothers that are diagnosed with bipolar, and they're also doing long bids in prison. So I was just, like, let me do something that's going to help people. And then, like, in the Black community, you don't really see, like, nobody really trying to help them.
Yeah.
Like, back in the 70s, when it was crack, it was, epidemic. Like, we wasn't sick, but now it's like heroin and fentanyl and all that. It's a disease. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they need help. Like, they got needle exchanges and all that. They didn't have it back in the 70s, back when, like, people like Tookie Williams was, back in LA and all that.
Tookie Williams.
I know about Tookie. I look into all of that stuff.
She know about Tookie Williams.
I'm a nerd. Like, I look into all of that. I look into, like, crime data. I look into...
She literally listens to killer stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to do
she literally listens to killer stories.
When I'm doing my notes, I'm listening to killer stories. I'm listening to death row stories.
How does that help?
It helps me because I know how to better help my people that are coming out of prison. So, like, we got people that are murderers and, we don't
everything but a sex offender.
Yeah, everything but a sex offender.
You can't hold back help from sex offenders.
But what's crazy is I got into substance abuse.
I think they may be some of the most important recipients of mental health.
They are, because that's really a sickness. That's really a brain disease.
Absolutely.
And for where we are, we can't
for where we are.
I say I was going to argue with you about it.
Oh, no. I want the people to know that we want to help everybody, but we got to be strategic on how we do it.
Yeah, go first.
Because with them, you gotta be a certain amount away from a school and from churches and all of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of hard where we located. Like, we within blocks of schools, churches, daycares. So it's kind of hard to place them in our program.
Let me ask you. So with respect to drugs, like, if you can speak about it, like, sometimes drugs can impact you days later based off what you did today, right?
Mhm.
Like you like decisions made days later. Like you can still be off balance from an episode that you had today, days later, right?
Mhm.
Could you speak about that?
So in particular, like we just did a group. We
Mhm.
had a client that was talking about how he experienced psychosis. He had did drugs for days. He experienced psychosis, so it affected him days later. He ended up catching an arson charge.
After he had stopped using it, it's still,
After.
right.
It was still affecting him because you can go into drug-induced psychosis and you don't know what you're doing. You might think that everybody in here is after you. That's not really what's going on.
Days after the drug has been used?
Days after. Because it sends you into like a psychosis. You know how like people with like schizophrenia and bipolar go into psychosis? It gives that, but you gotta think drugs on top of a mental health, like two co-occurring disorders together, it's disaster.
What is it? Are drugs like big in areas where there's depression? I mean, in economically depressed neighborhoods, are drugs and alcohol, are they consumed more in these areas? What is it? Do you find these things more relevant, more prevalent in areas where there's depression, there's economically horrible times for people? People are struggling. Are drugs and alcohol more prevalent in those times and areas?
Yes and no. Because I've learned being in the field, like the doctor that might be operating on you on the weekends, he's one of the people that's struggling with drugs. You know what I mean? So it might, to him, I mean, to you, he looked like that, you know what I'm saying? It's this doctor such and such, I've been going to him for 20 years, blah, blah, blah. Soon as he clocks out, he got a line.
So, and within the difference between him and the people in our areas is when he's found some type of a balance?
Some people are functioning addicts.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're able to go do the drug and still go in, perform the operation, talk to everybody, go in the car and do what they're gonna do, boost back up and come back and do it again. I worked as a nurse, so I literally had that experience of working with those people.
You work with families at all?
All the time.
Do families ever mend and come back from drugs?
They do, but it takes time because you got to think of that individual and what they caused in their family. So you might have your person who's struggling, they might have stole from everybody in the family, or they may have lied, they may have done things, they might have had a psychosis episode and really done some damage. But what we learn is that it takes a lot of time to mend those relationships.
Yeah, and a real desire to.
A real desire, and then sometimes we find that it's best not to mend the relationships, the family, because sometimes the family is the reason that person's there.
Yeah, the family is what put them on. Like I've had people be like, "Oh, I started using drugs with my mama at 8." So your mama introduced you to doing meth at 8. I don't think it's good that you reconnect with her, but it is possible to remend a family. So for instance, my cousin Tony, love her to death, in Cleveland, struggled with substance abuse. Been clean 20-something years. She has kids, you know, she's giving back to the community in Cleveland and all of that. So like that family has been remended. At one point in time, it wasn't gonna happen. And I'm really proud of her. Like she's part of my inspiration for wanting to speak out to how substance abuse affects families.
Yeah.
And I have my own personal experience, and I'm gonna say it's super hard to mend that certain relationships, particularly when it's your parent.
Yeah. You want to talk about your situation or something? Some other time?
I won't say names because, you know.
Yeah.
I won't say relationships.
I mean, you can tell some story.
So let's just say you're a kid and you're living with a parent who is struggling with substance abuse. Because of their choices, you could have a absolutely terrible childhood. Absolutely terrible.
Right.
So I'm gonna say, I guess I can share mine. That's a simpler story for me. Having to live with those choices, and those choices led to not me just having a bad childhood, but like things happened to me that I have to heal from due to someone else's decisions. But it really takes a lot of willpower to overcome a lot of those things when it comes to substance abuse and it being your parent. I'm trying to choose my words wisely.
Yeah. It's really like substance abuse has affected me too. So like the the man that raised me is of course not my biological father. My biological father is actually still an addict, an alcoholic. Like, so that with that situation, that's another reason why I wanted to go out and help people, because he said some things, he's done some things, as I was growing up, that I'm like, I cannot allow somebody else's kid to go through the same stuff that me and my brothers and sisters went through. Like, it's just, I have to be the person that stops it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all shrouded around substance abuse and mental health.
And see, he was never given a chance because his parents was addicts and alcoholics. So it's like,
it's the generational thing that I speak about. You heal the parent and the child won't suffer. It's just truth in that, isn't it?
It is some truth.
I don't think people are going back to the parent enough. I think that there's been a system that's been set in place that's been comfortable with pulling the parent away from the influence, pulling the child away from the influence of the parent. But if you can get that parent back right, you can keep the influence there, because that's the most dominant influence of the child. So I think if you go back to the parent and get those generational curses taken care of, other people all been dealing with, in our family. If you get those things taken care of, then the child's gonna naturally fall in line, like he or she fell in line with the generational curse.
In some aspects.
Talk to me.
In some instances.
Because I'm listening to that.
I think, and in even some instances, sometimes it's not heal the parent first. Sometimes the child has to heal first, because sometimes that child is who heals the parent. We've seen that.
Which is true, because, so, like, I have a child that struggles with mental health. He's only 12, but like when I started my master's degree, I was like, I'm gonna go into this master's degree because I want to help my son. So now I'm working on trying to heal him. I'm also trying to work on healing other people. And I feel like healing him is healing me, because now I can see like a bigger picture of life. And I see like all the stuff that kept me from being who I was supposed to be and all that, so I can
You see it through healing him?
Yes.
Yeah, so sometimes you have to heal the child. Yeah. Well, man, thanks for that. Because I was dead locked on locking in on the parents. But there has to be a concerted effort, huh?
It has to be.
It does.
And sometimes you gotta, it's very specific to the individuals. So what may work for this family is may not gonna work for this family. And we think like we're gonna come in and mend all these problems, these generational curses. Sometimes we just literally have to understand them. Once we understand it, we know within ourselves what needs to change.
Is there a base, something that you could just like say to everybody that everybody's just base do this, as far as families, maybe parents, with respect to whatever? We know alcohol, you just shouldn't be drinking. It's just cool to casually drink or whatever, if you even want to promote that. But I'm just saying, is there some base conversation or advice that one would want to give to any parent listening? This is for both of you guys, you know?
Honestly, the biggest part is living in your truth, your true authenticity. So one thing I learned just from my own family is people are running from their truth. People are trying to cover up their childhood. So then you cover up your childhood, you're still dealing with whatever you're dealing with, and you have a kid, and then you're treating this kid, and you're having them have experiences, and they don't fully understand you, so then they have children. And then you're covering up your stuff, and like no one's healing until you get to that one particular person who feels everything. And they go through the most pain because they're the ones that are transforming that.
And so you don't want to heal it.
Yeah.
You definitely are the person that's feeling everything, because you feel you've been to prison, you felt the effects of having a mother that battled with substance abuse, siblings that battled with substance abuse, other family members. So like you are literally like the hero of the family.
I'm literally the one that has endured everything. But I had my bouts too. I was tooting the hell out of cocaine for a while. I had to get out of that. You know, there was it's just nothing to do for one. But I had the stages where you go through life and you're dealing with issues that require more than weed, right? The level of depression that you go through the stage of your life requires for you to do much more than just try to fight and accept what it is. Nah, I needed some help. But it was also, I was having fun. There's a mixture.
There's a mixture.
Oh, there's a mixture. You dib and dab in this area because you're trying to cope with some action or some thought. You want to, to get away from that. It's you see it, you're not really partial to it. You get around it enough, you become familiar with it before you know it. You can put it in your nose, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did to it. You put it in your nose before. So then it's about trying to deal with something because you're escaping some depression or some thought or some whatever anxiety or whatever it is. But before you know it, it becomes wait, I can even have fun while I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you get lost in both the fun and the separation from depression.
What happens is you just get to separate from your reality, but no matter
That's
what,
exactly what was happening.
your reality is still
Ignorance.
It's
there.
still there.
Ignorance,
Like
yeah.
when the high comes down, your reality is still there.
Exactly.
Like you still going through stuff. But a lot of people will have, it's called co-occurring disorder. So a lot of people will have a mental health diagnosis that they don't know that they have this mental health diagnosis. They don't know that they need to go get help for bipolar or schizophrenia. So they're like, oh, okay, my homeboy introduced me to drugs. Okay, I done did this meth and kept me up all day. I was able to do everything I was supposed to do. Like, I'm cool. But then at the same time, when you start coming down from that high, you still dealing with the fact that life is fucked up for you and you need to do something to fast to get help with it. And then like people don't know like with the mental health stuff. So like if you have like bipolar and it goes untreated, it can turn into other different mental health disorders like schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
And like our family specifically, schizophrenia, I mean, that's a thing that is prevalent in our family.
Why is it?
Probably
Have you dissected?
I
You went into it, excuse me for touching. Have you dissected it all?
So I was talking to Tony about it because, her uncle suffered from it. So I was talking to Tony about it and I'm like, maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe back in the day, like when our grannies was growing up, they didn't know about all of this stuff, so they couldn't treat it, so it just kept going down the generation, and then we had to find somebody that's gonna stop it and tackle it. So like, I feel like I'm the person that's trying to help tackle the substance abuse and the mental health in the family, and I know people be looking at me like, she's doing all of this, she keep going back and get all these degrees and shit, but I'm trying to really help my family. Like, I wanna be able to save them. Yeah, I want to be able to save them, and then I feel like it's bigger than them too. I want to be able to save other people.
You need some help too.
I do.
Yeah, everybody got to be involved in that.
But
I mean, I'm on board. I'm on board. But yeah, I salute you. I salute you, cause
that's literally how Phoenix Place was born.
This literally how what?
The Phoenix Place, so the company that we started. Born from growing up in a family that predominantly has mental health, substance abuse, and almost every guy, like it's unheard of for my guys in my family not to have been in prison.
It's unheard of.
Literally everybody. It's like,
it's a rite of passage.
Yeah, so it's like it's a badge. Literally, it's like all the guys have gone to prison. Like it's like you ain't the real man.
Do they feel like it's a badge, or it's just how you view it?
I view it that way. I don't know if they do, but I can tell you what.
How are they doing now?
Oh, they're not doing very well at all. Like one of my uncle particularly, like he comes out. 30 days is his max. He's like, I gotta go back. I can't. I'm not ready yet.
Oh, brother, man.
And that comes from being institutionalized. Like, I don't think people understand.
That's exactly what it is.
So when you go to prison, just think, being in there. Okay, so for some people, it's like foreign. Like you catch a charge at 18.
Yeah.
You go into prison at between 18 and 22. You're really still developing and finding out who you are. And then you do 20 years and you get out and you in your 40s. The world did not stop. Like the world just kept going. So you got to get reacclimated with everything that's going on in the world. And it's not easy. Like for me specifically, my brother got sentenced to 50 years.
Right.
Even he goes up for parole in 2031. When he went in, he was like in his 20s. So it's like he's doing good. He's really starting to kind of see like the life that he was living out here, and then he still tried to live it in prison. He's like, that's not the way to go. And
he's at that place.
Yeah, he's at that turning point, and I'm trying to tell him, I'm like, you done missed most of your son's life. Like your son's about to be 20. You done missed everything except for 1 year of his life. Like you need to start looking at the turning point, because I don't want him to end up like you, and it be a, you know what I'm saying, a generational thing
Yeah.
that began with you. So people don't understand, like, doing that time in prison, you get institutionalized, like,
Yeah.
really, really, it's really easy to get institutionalized.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And to get,
I've been there, trust me.
and brainwashed, because you got people, you got people in there that's like, follow Islam, follow Rasta, and you thinking they ways is right, and they ways ain't even, you know what I'm saying?
Most people become influenced by the immediate strength there. If there's a bunch of Muslims on your particular walk in prison, and you come on that walk and move on walk, it's a good chance that you're gonna start doing push-ups with them brothers. Before you know it, you'll be going to masjid with them. It's just you're going with the immediate influence in the area.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these brothers don't have no independent source of strength to draw from, so they have to go outside of that to get something. And outside of that in their immediate areas, but they'll grab from. So they'll grab from those guys and then gravitate toward them and then mimic their behavior and how they pattern themselves on the yard or move on the yard. They do the same thing. Luckily, some of them can luckily catch up with some good dudes. Because you got guys that's in the legal library trying to get out, fight the case. You got guys that, Muslims are fine, that's not a bad thing to get up into.
I mean,
Christianity or whatever it is, But guys lean the direction of the immediate influence in the area a lot of times, Some of them are strong enough to resist and just be independent. There's a few good cats like that around, but yeah, most people are sheep. They'll follow the flock.
And then some of them are going in there, they've been in this generational curse. They haven't had no family. So when they get in there, they, you know what I'm saying, like when you in there, they see you, they're like, oh yeah, Jetty, I like how he think, I like how he operates. So they flock right to you and they're like, shit, Jetty's a daddy figure to me now, you know what I'm saying? And then they start building like, this is my brother, this is my cousin. And they built this family, and that's why a lot of them get out 30 days later and they're like, shit, the only family I know is over there. So I'm gonna do whatever I can to get back to them.
Well, hang on, it's not necessarily that. Okay, check this out. The only family I know is over there. It's not necessarily that I want to get back to them. Everybody wants to be free, but I have to do everything I can to try to help and provide for them people down there too. So now I'm committing crime because of the gravity of people not looking out for me when I was in there, and I vowed that I would never do the same for those individuals that I leave behind. But now I'm committing crime to tend to make sure I feed them. Stuff like that. And then some of them, you got some guys that might want to rush back, and I don't know many of those people. They want to go back. They said, I'm trying to go.
Crazy shit to get back.
Yeah, crazy.
They didn't have to do nothing.
I mean,
they could have stayed in. You see what I'm saying? Because you can catch every write-up. Why did you even leave? Because you can catch every write-up while you in there to stay in there. And if you really don't want to leave, you can just take the guard and grab him and cut his neck. If you want to stay, these guys didn't want to stay. They just mentally ill. They came out and the pressure of surviving in society was too much for them. So they needed to go back to the refuge of being able to be told when to go eat. You take your behind to sleep at this time, and you can go out and play at this time. They probably ran back to that structure because life was so overwhelming. It gets that way.
True, but prison is not, there's no rehabilitation in prison, which is, so at Phoenix Place, you can get the rehabilitation that prison was supposed to be giving you. Like, prison is going to, they're making dollars off of it. And I always tell people, I'm like, the school system sets you up for the pipelines in prison. Because you got to think, in school, you walking in a single file line. In prison, everybody's going to the yard in formation. You know what I'm saying? When you go to recess, everybody is on the yard. When you go to lunch, they give you just slap shit on the tray.
They do.
You know what I'm saying? In prison, they slap the shit on the tray. So everything, like, it's called the cage bird syndrome for real. So you start out and they try to keep, like, that's why, like with the school system, everybody's child has ADHD. That's what they say. Every child has ADHD.
Why is that? Is it social media?
Listen, let's go back to this, and it ties into substance abuse. They all got ADHD. They all need to get on these amphetamine drugs.
Yes, like Adderall.
Leads them to needing that. They become chemically dependent on it. So what do? They go out here and try this meth.
Right.
You're in trouble from that.
You're in trouble from there.
That's right.
And then, you know what I'm saying, they putting them in these smaller classes. That's like being in solitary confinement. That's what I'm saying. Like, people don't understand that.
Well, so how do they justify that by saying what smaller classes you can pay more attention to the?
They say.
But it's not.
That's not factual. It's not the case. Like, cause like for my son, like they got
seems
him.
logical.
They got him in smaller classes. He does more shit in the smaller classes than he did in the bigger general population classes.
It's not even in our human nature to do that. So there's individualism and then there's like the collective. We are meant to be a part of the collective. So the moment you isolate us, you break our human nature, which is authenticity and connection.
And a lot of people in prison, when they go into their solitary confinement, you gotta think they in there for 20, some people been there for 20, 30 years. Like, it's me and the walls. Like, they gonna start talking to me. I'm gonna develop schizophrenia. I'm gonna be bipolar. I'm gonna have PTSD. So then when I get reintroduced into society, I don't know how to cope because, again, the prison is not rehabilitating me. The prison is just keeping me confined. They're literally, I'm only a number. Like, I'm not McKinney, I'm not none of it. I'm inmate number. Whatever they give me, that's who I am for the duration of my term.
Let me ask you this. Did alcohol and mental health and all of those things, did they spike during and after COVID?
They spiked during COVID.
During COVID. Because you gotta think, we're confined to the house.
And guess what? Everything else was closed. The liquor stores were deemed unnecessary.
Like it was a necessary business, yeah. That was essential.
It was essential. That's what the word they called it.
Why would you say that is?
Why?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like that was because they wanted us to do that. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that, am I? They wanted society to be inebriated. They do not want us to be connected to our true minds. Like they want us to be off. Yeah. If you stay off, you stay part of the program. You start to connect.
And it's part of the agenda.
Okay, you guys are okay.
You didn't suspect us. You know
I knew you guys were smart. I just didn't know if y'all wanted to touch on that. I didn't know if y'all wanted to touch on that, but so in closing, because we're getting ready to close, individually, would you guys please speak to the camera about what alcohol and mental health is doing to our communities and what steps that people should take, just general steps for the basic person to take in order to avoid that or make a contribution to the ending of it?
Get a therapist. Get a therapist and process your childhood trauma. We have it. We have it. Just genetically, we have childhood traumas because mental health is developing. The brain, them learning, the scientists that are learning the brain, they are still developing and learning the brain. So all these mental health disorders and all this stuff is fairly new in the last 20 years. So we can't blame our grandparents, great-grandparents, because they didn't even have access to mental health. Yeah. So we have to correct it. We have to correct it.
Even though it can come from that, it's our obligation to correct it.
Because we can cry about it, but we just stay in that state of depression.
Absolutely. Even as a therapist, I encourage people to get a therapist. Like, every good therapist has a therapist because you gotta think, like, as a therapist, people are unpacking their trauma on you. Like, you going with somebody from when they got into foster care at 3 years old up until they're now 25, and everything that they've been through is unpacked on you. It's called secondary trauma. So get a therapist. I just encourage everybody to get a therapist. There's nothing wrong with, because I know like in like the black community, they be like, I'm not going to go sit on that couch across from them. There's nothing wrong with sitting on the couch. Yeah. Sometimes the couch saves your life. And I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes the couch is going to unpack stuff that you didn't even know was going on with you. And then, you know, the therapist start talking to you. You're like, oh, that's what's really been going on. That's why I was like this, and that's why this happened. Yeah. Get a therapist.
Can I just add something about seeing a therapist? Because I hear this a lot about, I'm not seeing a therapist, I'm not crazy, seeing a therapist doesn't make you crazy. Therapy is not just to go dump all your problems. Therapy is literally to create a strategy to overcome your problems. It is not just to go dump and then you just tell them and that's just it. Yeah. You create a strategy to overcome those things.
So see someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see someone, and then from the get-go, when you first start seeing a therapist, like your exit plan with the therapist begins on day one of your intake with the therapist. So we're thinking about like, I've been battling this. How can we get from me battling this all my life to where we are now to get me to success in the future? So we develop treatment plans so that the person has a treatment plan to go by. So I want to get a hold of my PTSD. I want to recognize the triggers for my PTSD. Then I want to recognize the triggers for my bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have substance abuse coupled in with that. What are we going to do to help those two things and help me stay free from addiction and experiencing relapse?
Mm-hmm.
So,
You concur?
I sure do.
I think that life is about a bunch of habits, right? These habits come from things that you think, and you think them so much that you ultimately start to do them, and it becomes a habit.
Mm-hmm.
So if these habits are formed by the things that you think, then I believe that right thinking is the most important thing that a person should be concerned with. Mental health disrupts that because as a person is thinking about the things that you're thinking about, his depression, his anxiety, his whatever, you are also drawing more of that to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So healing mental health and getting into those areas for people should be the most primary concern, because you're drawing more of that right back to yourself if you're not healing the things and unpacking the things that already exist on your back right now, man. Show me your greatness. Get out there, man. Get involved in healing. Substance abuse, try to stay away from it as much as possible. You've heard the things that these women have spoke of. These guys are experts. Show me your greatness. You guys be careful.